the way I work with clients is really I'm removing things that weaken the battery. So when people just charge up the battery using their breathing, but they're not looking at the huge outflows, it's more of a technique to try and give them energy and give them a little bit of a high. So oftentimes you'll find when you do breathing, everything you're kind of numbing yourself. You're walking around high, which is fine, but it's a technique to try and make the experience of working with your computer better. Okay. So anyway, so it's just something that is, and so this what happened to me last week. I started jujitsu, and it's very hot. You're also wearing heavy, hot things, and you're being smothered by hot, heavy people. I'm just pouring with sweat, and I was really struggling to get my breath, and I was getting out of breath very quickly. And each day when I got home, I felt less well, or sort of something was wrong. And then on the Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I started to feel something that I've experienced before, which is sort of breathlessness, fatigue, aching, um, and my vision was a little bit more blurry. So I started, I think it was yesterday in the morning. I sat down and I went very quiet and I was just observing this. And I was like, there was concern that it was a heart thing. I was looking at the blood and circulation. There was a weakness around the blood that I was strengthening. But then quiet, 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 boom, it comes to me. And it's something that's happened to me before, but I forgot about it. It's potassium. And I talked about this a while back about potassium electrolytes. So I was yesterday I was feeling really bad. Okay. I was not in a good mood, and it wasn't. I couldn't clear it. I was tired. My blood pressure was up. I felt breathless. It was a concern. I was like, shit, what is going on with me? Am I like, is this my heart? So I went and I've got a supplement of potassium in the kitchen, and I took like 1,000 milligrams of potassium. Within 30 seconds, it was all gone. So I then went through and studied a little bit about what I had studied before, and it all made sense to me. So I was really low on potassium. Now, potassium, um, I'm not an expert in this area, so I'm just talking about it. You guys go do, if you think this is useful, you go and check it out yourself, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. But what I have learned is um, Neanderthal man, or like ancestral man, they believe got, from looking at their bones and everything, they got minimum like 11,000 milligrams a day of potassium. Hey, Andrea, 1,000 milligrams a day of potassium. And nowadays, the daily recommended dose is like 3 to 4,000. And very few people will be getting that. But some doctors who I listen to are like, that should be minimum. And they're conservative doctors, like that's a minimum. Now, if you've read the book Fiat Foods, or you've studied the money, you'll know that food is becoming cheaper, and being forced to become cheaper, because the governments will be overthrown if people can't eat, if it's too expensive. So, and it's been happening either through incentives, or I don't think the government has said to food manufacturers, please make the food cheaper, otherwise we're going to be thrown out of government. But there'll be some type of influence that food manufacturers have to make the food cheaper, otherwise people can't afford it. And so the food quality and the process by which they make the food becomes faster, quicker, and less good food at the end of the day. Okay. Um, the So because of that, the daily recommended allowances and everything is brought down, or things are changed either to enable us to the pharmaceutical industry. There's an incentive to get more people on drugs like statins, like lowering your cholesterol, which is what is used um, to create everything in the body. So there's an incentive, kind of skewed incentive by the pharmaceutical companies, as you guys know, but there's also a skewed incentive to bring daily allowances down, because what happens if no one's meeting their daily allowances and they know it, then we can't afford to meet our daily allowances. So there, there's this skewed incentive with food at the moment. It's so broken, as you guys know. So remember, um, the other thing that's going on is our soil. I'm not going to go into it. You guys know the soil's damaged and it's not being looked after. So the potassium and magnesium and calcium and sodium in the soil, the cows or the vegetables are not getting the quantities sucked into the plant as we did thousands and thousands of years ago. So there's kind of like a massive decline in the quality of the minerals in our foods. And that's where the problem lies. And it's what I wanted to talk about with the body, mind, and the spirit, right? So we're trying to eat, and maybe Yolanda in Italy, the quality of the food that you eat is much better, but it's starting to become really difficult. Here in Madeira, you have to um, get it sort of organic from a local garden to get vegetables and things with good amounts of minerals in. But I just wonder, that the piece of land that we get is not massive, and they are looking after the soil. But at the end of the day, is there a problem there that to get that amount? And is the water they're using, like, is there a problem with our rainwater because there's so much plastics in the ocean now? Is that having an effect, whatever? So why am I talking so much about the minerals? Well, they're called electrolytes. Electro means that the potassium, um, calcium, magnesium, and sodium are essential for the battery to work. And if I wonder, when you're doing a lot of energy work and you're inside and using your mind a lot to find things, I've experienced in talking with students and others that I think it uses up those quite quickly. If you're an athlete, you're using those up quite quickly. So what happened was you doing the jujitsu in the week, I was sweating so much and I just wasn't getting enough of the electrolytes in the minerals, especially potassium. Why do I like this? Is something I found with Lima. With Bo, she's fine with whatever. She likes salty food, Bo, but she also likes chocolate. But Lima, we've seen, and I've talked about this before, when she was very young, she would have tantrums if she ate food that was too salty. What I mean by that, too much sodium, not enough equal amounts of potassium. So coming back to this potassium thing, you remember I said that the minerals in the food, that there was a lot more 100,000 years ago, a lot more. There's a relationship, and everything has a relationship. Magnesium, calcium, they're all needed, but sodium to potassium is like 1 to 6. You need 6 or 10 times more potassium than the sodium. So what can happen is you have sodium, salt, or I have it, or Lima would have sodium, and there wasn't enough potassium in the food. And so she was craving bacon, which is full of potassium. This is like really high in potassium. And so what I did was I gave her supplemental potassium when she had a meltdown, or she got a rash. Instantly, it was gone. The mood was literally like, drink that, and she was calm. So so there's a real psychological effect from the lack of electrolytes as well as a physical. Um, why do I and Lima need more potassium? I don't know, but what I do know is that everyone's individual on their levels of electrolytes. We're not getting enough from the food. And so that's something to be aware of, that you're getting the right amount of magnesium, calcium, potassium, and sodium. And I wonder how many people are low in their, let's just call it salt, but I'm talking about not just sodium. And so I was reading a book called the Salt Fix, which is a new book. He's a young guy, he's a doctor and a researcher, saying that we got it completely wrong about low salt being healthy. Well, it's just another thing that the experts got wrong. It's he says there was no scientific evidence to bring in a low salt diet, and it wrecks us. And salt has no effect on uh, blood pressure and tension. That was just anecdotal from two experts back in the day, but there was no scientific research to back that up. So again, we're working with a paradigm that salt's bad for your heart and everything, where in fact it's essential. The other thing that I found interesting in this book is he's talking about the insulin connection. When you have low salt, your insulin is raised. And so it also has an effect on the liver. So for me, if you're working with someone and they have like liver, kidney, they're holding too much weight, blurry vision, like those organs affect everything. Liver starts to get problematic. Insulin, blood sugars start to become problematic. Liver's not functioning correctly. Vitamin A starts to it's just do 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 do. Yeah, so if you're so that's just something that needs to be become aware of. If you're working with other people, that you can be working on, like they say, of getting rashes. So you work on the normal thing, but it's just something to be aware of. Like you can check those for like electrolytes. Are you getting enough electrolytes? The guy in the book says, you can't really overdo it, which is incredible. Um, and I've got lots of running and banging in the background. So it's just something to become aware of. The charging up nature of our bodies as electrical circuits is extremely important. The woman I was talking with about using Kundalini to charge up the body. Well, if you haven't got enough potassium or sodium on board, you're not going to be able to, the plus and minus, you're not going to be able to charge up. We know that and I think I said last week, but maybe I didn't. There was David Attenborough. There's a video on Instagram that's amazing. He's talking about flowers being positively and negatively charged. When the bee comes, if you hook up this little simple machine where that charge makes a sound. So the flowers are like making a sound. Then the bee comes into contact with that energy field. When I talk about energy, I'm talking electromagnetic field. And then the bee comes in, and the bee is charging itself up by flapping of the wings. And then they come together, and it changes the sound the flower makes. Goes down. You can hear it as it comes in. As the bee connects with the flower, the nectar jumps electrically onto the bee, and then the bee goes away, and the sound the flower makes becomes less. It changes so other bees know that there's no pollen. So it's all electrical. Everything's electrical, and I know I've known that for more than 30 years now. But there's something about kind of knowing it by feeling it rather than just logically knowing it. So I knew it logically before, but now I'm like we're giving off sounds we don't know. There's the frequencies for the hamster wheels are pulling in exactly the right level of person frequency. Everything's frequency, right? Um, so the plant is working. That's a positive negative charge. Everything's positive negative charge. Our bodies are positive negative charge. The lady I was speaking to is talking about working with positive negative charges with the Kundalini. I know that she's half Korean. I know that Korean medical system, they put people in hot baths up to their waist, so their legs are yang. It's more yang heat, and then the upper body is more negatively charged. So they're balancing out the charge. Incredible. So there's this charge. We're working with energy. We're working with energy with the hamster wheels, with the plus minus yin yang, the mind, the body, and then there's of course the spirit. And so just become aware that the thing that makes us alive is that charge. And the charge needs the batteries, minerals to make it work, just like the Tesla. So make sure you're getting enough minerals. And then Yulan said pink salt, Himalayan salt is rich in sodium. Yeah, it's also rich in lots of other things, but it doesn't have it doesn't have any iodine because it's not from the sea. So we need to be using different types of salts. So in America, there's this red something salt, and that's a very good salt because it's not polluted from the sea. There's very good Irish sea salt, or the French have some really great sea salts. So sea and Himalayan and different salts, making sure we've got the iodine as well. And of course, from foods as well, of course.